Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 2 on DraftKings NFL DFS. We're going to go over my first look lineup for week 2. We're not doing a cash game lineup. We are going to try and build a tournament lineup for week 2 based around a quarterback, a double stack, a bring back player, and a secondary stack to try and give you the highest correlated lineup that we can, give you an opportunity to see the way that I want you to approach building lineups for large field tournaments. If you have not already, we have a video on how to do this in depth and why we're doing this. Go check that video out. There should be like a little pop-up like up here that'll take you to that video that you can then use and look at after this video, and why we're using these tournament strategies that we've been using for a couple of years. We have laid it out for 2021 for you. Definitely go check that video out. I appreciate all you guys coming back, but I know that only half of you have been watching these videos are subscribers, so please do me a favor, click that subscribe button, ring the notification bell. That really helps the channel a lot. Drop a like on the video, leave me a reply down below with who your primary, your first look favorite double stack and bring back is for week 2, and let's hit the video.
He's a legend.
First of all, a really big thank you to every single person who jumped in the listener league for week 1. You guys are awesome. We did not quite fill it out, but we're working on getting a new listener league up for week 2. It might be a little bit sized down. We're going to probably bump the price from $5 to $10 for week 2. Still 3 max, still going to be rake free. As soon as I have that link, I'm going to put it down below in the description. So if you're looking at this on mobile, right below the screen here, there is a little bar. Click that. That'll show you all the different links for that, for the fundraiser that we're doing for No Kid Hungry. Here's what we had, people just donating money left and right, including a $5,000 donation from J-Huck. Absolutely absurd. As you saw in the intro, we're already at like $7,000 raised plus. So like, you guys are awesome through week 1. Let's try and keep that momentum up in week 2 and see what we can get to. Every $5,000 that's donated, I will match up to $25,000, trying to raise 50K for No Kid Hungry. So starting right at the top, I've said all offseason that I think that Kyler Murray could very realistically break fantasy. Like he could break fantasy football this year. He was on pace to break it last year. Through 10 weeks, he played 9 games and was the overall #1 quarterback ever. So he came out and blasted Tennessee in week 1. Now he gets Minnesota in week 2, who gave up, almost, a ton of passing yards to Joe Burrow, 27 points, whatever. Lots of long passes completed. One to Jamar Chase, who previously was said cannot catch the ball anymore, but apparently that was not true, and he's just fine. Kyler Murray is a dual threat quarterback. He is the highest price guy on the board, and for good reason. He has the highest ceiling expectation and has a ridiculously high floor because of the amount of rushes that he gets. And if that efficiency translates this year, which it hasn't his first 2 years because of the horizontal raid, I love that he challenged more downfield in week 1 than in past weeks, or past years actually. Russ Wilson, really good landing spot. We saw what they did to Tennessee last week, did the Arizona Cardinals. Now Russ Wilson in the Seattle Seahawks offense gets a shot at him. Russ is extremely expensive. I want to pay up a little bit at quarterback, but I don't know if I want to pay up this high. Josh Allen had a down week, now gets the down pace. Good defense, has to travel to Miami. The Bills are favored by 3.5, and the total is 48.5 in this game. So offense is still expected in this spot. Last year, we saw him post a game in week 17 with 20 points in that game, but like, I don't think he game that week. Early in the season, 37.5. So he has torched them in the past, and that was without a rushing touchdown. So we'll see if this Miami team has grown a little bit since then defensively. Also, that game was in Miami. This game in Miami. Going to be interested to see if Josh Allen can have a bounce back week off of the somewhat disappointing 18 fantasy points he scored in week 1. Tom Brady's still good, has an awful lot of weapons at his disposal. They all seem to be priced about the same, and we'll get to that when we get to wide receivers. Ridiculously efficient. 32 and threw for a lot of passes against Dallas for 50 passes. You can see they have not put the game logs up here yet for this year. We're that early in the cycle. 379 yards, 4 touchdowns, spread them out. Did throw 2 picks in week 1 for a monstrous night on Thursday Night Football. Dak Prescott is leading the carnival once again. One of the highest totaled games on the slate. the second highest behind Titans and Seahawks. Cowboys have a total of 53 here against the Los Angeles Chargers. They're going to travel to SoFi here. It's going to be a temperature-controlled game on the fast track. You watch the Rams just go bonkers against the Bills or the Bears on Monday Night Football. And Dallas can't stop anyone from doing anything defensively. And most teams can't stop Dallas from doing anything offensively. That combination is going to lead to more games that have a combined 60 to 75 total points scored, which is exactly what we want to see when we're targeting fantasy players, especially DFS players in them. 58 pass attempts for him against the Buccaneers' vaunted defense for 403 yards and 3 touchdowns in that season opener. On the other side of that, Justin Herbert completed 31 of 47 with 337 and a touchdown against Washington. This is a much softer landing spot, so a great bounce back spot for Justin Herbert in week 2. Jalen Hurts was as advertised in week 1 against Atlanta. Now he gets a much tougher test. This one, though, at home. It's going to be interesting to see what Jalen Hurts can do against a really top-level defense where the Atlanta Falcons, all apologies, are just not a top-level defense, at least nowhere near the caliber that the San Francisco 49ers are. We watched him be very efficient with the ball because they did not have him really firing deep. They were taking shorter shots and letting the athletes that they have on the outside go to work. Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, they have great pass-catching backs, both Kenny Gainwell, who is now the 35-40% guy there, and Miles Sanders in front of him. They have 2 very competent tight ends in Zach Ertz, who left the game early. We'll see if he's available for week 2, but Dallas Goedert, also an extremely competent tight end as well. Good pass catchers abound for Jalen Hurts, and if Sirianni can put together an offensive game plan that A, will allow him to be more efficient with the ball, as he was in week 1, completing 27 of 35 for 264, as well as adding what he can on the ground. You saw him run for 60-something more yards against Atlanta. Jalen Hurts presents a really high floor because of the rushing yardage and a really high ceiling because of the increased opportunity for passing efficiency and rushing touchdowns on top of that. Baker Mayfield, I think that Cleveland running backs are going to be somewhat popular this week against Houston. So if the running backs are extremely popular, stacking the passing game would be a way to get contrarian and leverage everybody who's on Chubb or Hunt to get to Mayfield plus 1 or 2 of his pass catchers and bring it back with like Brandon Cooks, the one guy I'd want to bring it back with on Houston, who's going to get a ton of volume pretty much every week. Looking at the cheaper guys, Trevor Lawrence goes up against an even tougher defense than he saw in week 1. He only completed 28 of 51 against Houston, but did get a whole lot of garbage time points with 332 yards and 3 touchdowns. All of them came super late when they were already, it was basically just game over. He was stat padding. We may see a lot of that later in games. I think that they're not going to want to get to that point, and I don't think that everybody's going to be up 20 points on Jacksonville at halftime. But Denver, a very competent offense, at least in terms of tools, and should do a better job of completing passes this year with Teddy Two Gloves at the helm instead of Drew Lock, who throws a lot of uncatchable balls at his wide receivers. Joe Burrow, even though it's the Chicago defense, you know, like the monsters of the Midway and whatever, Joe Burrow's good. Joe Burrow only threw 27 passes. The Bengals project to be one of the highest volume passing games in the league. We didn't really see it week 1 as they were playing from ahead for a lot of the second half against Minnesota, but now you've got a spot where maybe he throws it 35 to 40 times. You've already seen the increased efficiency. We talked about that. He threw like 3% of his pass attempts for touchdowns last year, and he seems like he should be a 5 to 6% guy career, which means that has to regress in a positive manner towards the mean, which means more touchdowns for Joey Burrow, and we saw that with a touchdown to Higgins. We saw that with a touchdown to Chase. Chase was the leading guy in terms of the market share last week, and he still has a third option in Boyd. Very easily stacked and double stacked, and you can bring that back with anybody that you want in Chicago, whether it's going to be Allen Robinson, whether it's going to be David Montgomery, or if Mooney's healthy, you can come back with him, or if you really want to get spicy, go with like Cole Kmet, the non-copyright frog. Plenty of cheaper options that you could go with if you want to. I don't think that we need to. I just wanted to say this. Please play Justin Fields more. Freaking tired of this Andy Dalton stuff. That's all I have to say about that. I'm going to go with Dak Prescott because I like fantasy points, and Dak Prescott seems to get them in spades. And with the 300-yard bonus on DraftKings, that allows us more access to more points. He should throw for an abundance of touchdowns this season. And if he throws it 50 plus times, plus as efficient as he's been and the talent that they have at wide receiver, that makes it really easy. We're going to stack 2 of these wide receivers with him. If you want to go with Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, that's great, and I'm on board with you. I think that there's 3 guys to go with. Michael Gallup is going to be out this week, and in Michael Gallup's absence, Cedric Wilson filled that 3rd wide receiver role. They're not going to change the way that they run this offense. Ced Wilson just steps into a much higher volume role, and he's only 3,100. To me, screams as one of the best values on the board. It's going to be no secret which one of these 2 I'm picking. I like Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper is outstanding. I think that anytime that he's healthy, we're going to consider him. And I'm going to have, across my lineups, some Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, double stacks with Dak Prescott. But you saw the cover boy, so I'm going with CeeDee Lamb because he's pretty freaking good. We got to bring this back with somebody on the Chargers because I got to have a bring back player. If I fill another one of my wide receiver spots, it's going to make it a little bit tougher for me to bring this back, although you can. Keenan Allen did get 13 targets in week 1 against an extremely stout defense, that which the Dallas Cowboys are not. They do have one really solid cornerback who did kind of lock down Mike Evans, but the Chargers don't have all those other many places to throw to. If you said, okay, I want to go, I think that Keenan Allen's going to get locked down. I don't think that Keenan Allen is able to get locked down. And you want to go with Mike Williams for a little bit cheaper. I'm on board with that. Caught 8 of his 12 targets for 82 and a touchdown. Big Mike is certainly an end zone target and a deep threat. Big splash and high floor this year as long as he stays healthy. Then with the other receivers, not as great. The tight end, Jared Cook got a good amount of targets this week. If you want to go with Parham, because you can't teach height at only 29, that's fine. But I want to go with Austin Ekeler, who got 0 targets in week 1. Absolute anomaly. But he was one of like 5 running backs on the week. Don't fact check me. I posted in Discord. If you're not in Discord, why not? Down below, like I said, where you can find the listener league, there's also a link to Discord, smizzle.tv/Discord, if you wanted to jump in there at any time. And if you are a channel member here on YouTube, you get access to all of the sub-only rooms, which is really where everybody hangs out and where you can find a whole community, 5,000 plus members, to talk daily fantasy football or anything else, DFS or fantasy oriented, and some things that aren't, like NFTs and whatnot. Round the clock. Anytime you want to talk, there's people there who are like-minded individuals like you, so get in there and talk to them. This is an anomaly for me. He's not going to get 0 targets, guys, every single week. The week 1 cognitive bias is going to be strong with people. Look at his targets from last year. If he's healthy, he will get targeted. That is something that will not continue. But he did get the inside the 5 carries last week, which makes him, as the Chargers are favored, a 5-box running back for week 2. Involved in the passing game, expectation of 20 plus touches, gets those goal line carries at home and favored. You can add a 6-box, a total above 50, a 7th box, ridiculously good matchup. I don't care. I want Austin Ekeler. He's my Charger to go to this week. All the others are fine. If you want to go with Big Mike, if you want to go with Keenan Allen, great. I'm going with Austin Ekeler in that spot. I'm going to try and find another 5-box running back. Again, we're looking for guys that are favored, who are at home, who have an expectation of 20 plus touches. Let's see if we can find one. Christian McCaffrey, he's really good, guys. He's still really good this year. Remember that stuff that he wasn't going to do stuff? He was the #1 running back on the week, did not break 100 yards, and did not score a touchdown. Caught 9 targets for 89, rushed 21 times for 98 yards. He's an absolute monster. And against against New Orleans, he has averaged over 6.5 catches per game historically. Really high floor, really high ceiling every week. If he can wander into the end zone, he has a chance at a 30-plus point game, as he averaged 30 points a game last year and the year before. Dalvin Cook in a weird spot against Arizona. At least he got 20 carries. He also got 7 targets in that game as they were playing from behind. Superstar running back. If you want to pay up for him, great. There's a lot of value on the board. Alvin Kamara, probably the best matchup of the group, going against Carolina, who hemorrhages points against opposing running backs and is extremely used in the passing game. Massive blowout situation. Didn't get the utilization in the passing game in week 1 as we would have liked to have seen if that game could have stayed closer, but Green Bay just did not bring it in week 1, and they just didn't have to do things. New Orleans didn't, as they normally would, as less than 150 yards and 5 touchdowns is an almost impossibility for a quarterback. Nick Chubb's going to be extremely popular. Can we use him as a 5-box running back? I don't think he has enough usage in the passing game, but Cleveland is at home. You'll find out on Tuesday's video. Are favored by 11.5 points over the Texans, who probably aren't as good as they looked against Jacksonville last week, and are going to get a bolt from the skies against Cleveland, playing at home. Monstrous favorites. And the thing that I like about Nick Chubb, you get the floor of carries, you get the goal line, you get the inside the 5 stuff from him, but like his ability to break long runs is something that I don't think people really take a look at very often, right? So like this guy broke off a 20-yard run in every game but 2, including the playoffs last year. He has as much big splash, big playability as any running back. The problem is his receiving floor. His targets did escalate as the season went along, right? So looking at the first 5, 6, 7 weeks last season, he rarely had more than 1 target in any game. At this week 12, after he came back from his injury, he had 3. But then late in the season, 5 targets, 4 targets against Pittsburgh in the playoffs, 5 targets against KC in the playoffs. If they throw him the ball between 2 and 5 times a game, that could be enough to really, really push Nick Chubb over the edge because of how talented he is and in a great situation. I'm going to avoid him in this lineup, but he's going to be a very heavily trafficked player this week. Joe Mixon, as we said all preseason, he's not coming off the field, guys. Really high volume. Ran 29 times last week, and he got 4 targets that he caught all 4 of, and he gets all the inside the 5 work in what should be a really high-powered offense. And the Bears may not be a team that can stop everybody. It's going to be interesting to see how Khalil Mack and that defensive line can match up against the kind of much maligned Cincinnati Bengals offensive 5 front to see what they can do there. But like Joe Mixon is going to get all the volume in the world, and volume over everything for me. So Joe Mixon at 7K, a really good play. I'm not going to use him in this lineup though. We'll probably talk about him more as the week goes along. One guy that I do want to highlight, I almost went with Chris Carson in this lineup at 6,100 at home, favored. Does get used in the passing game, but not a ton. He's not like a 5, 6, 7, 8 target guy, but he'll get you between 3 and 5 targets pretty much every single week, and gets the goal line stuff and has big playability. Really good spot for him against Tennessee, at home in Seattle in this spot. But sometimes, and look, with Mostert getting hurt in week 1, we're going to have to monitor this and see what happens for the next game. But if Mostert is out in week 2, and we saw Sermon be a healthy scratch, as a lot of reports came out that he was 3rd on the depth chart, and so they just didn't even need him, just not picking things up. Elijah Mitchell profiles very much like Mostert in terms of like speed and shuttle and score and big playability. Like he's a similar type of running back from a physical profile. And that seems to be, along like Tevin Coleman, seems to be the type of guy that Coach Shanahan likes. 19 times for 104 and a touchdown in relief of Mostert. He's only 5K. Definitely a viable play here, albeit different situation against Philly than it was against Detroit's run defense. But being the troll at heart that I am, just a little bit, just enough. I like to poke. Najee Harris, also a good play that people are going to overlook a little bit here. Being that I like to poke from time to time, the Buccaneers are the biggest favorites on the board this week with a 13-point edge over the Atlanta Falcons at home with a game total of 52 points. So half of 52 is 26. Half of 13 is 6.5. Team total of 31.5. 4+ touchdowns expected. Lenny getting all of the work, 20 opportunities last week. 20 opportunities in the Super Bowl. 9 times he ran on Thursday Night Football when they were chasing against Dallas. Also got 7 targets in that game. Leonard Fournette at 5,100 presents us with what seems to be a really ridiculous floor, considering that Tom Brady and Bruce Arians just don't like Rojo, want to give Fournette the passing game work, and want to give him the inside the 5 carries. Leonard Fournette at 5,100 kind of feels too cheap to ignore for this first look lineup at this spot at 5,100 against Atlanta. Don't need much from him. If I get 15 fantasy points, we're rolling because of the price and what him and Wilson will allow us to do with the rest of this lineup. So I mentioned that there were a couple of other high profile, high scoring games. Talk to you about, if you don't want Fournette here, you want to go with Carson or somebody else, I'm fine with that. I like to poke. But it's real easy for me to lock up all of the Rebels and just go with DK Metcalf and AJ Brown in the same lineup for my secondary stack. I could just play the old MCCAFFREY. Can you believe that they did not win more games with DK Metcalf and did not throw for more yards with Metcalf and Brown on that team in college? Absurd. Going on to tight end, Darren Waller is amazing. We're going to have to wait and see until Monday night happens. 7,600 is an extremely fair price for him against Pittsburgh. George Kittle, also very good. Kyle Pitts priced up to 4,200. People are going to say, well, Kyle Pitts didn't do well. Why is he priced up? One, if you price a tight end who is athletically gifted as he is in a game where his quarterback really had a horrible, horrible day, and he still got 8 targets, lined up mostly in the slot and wide, Kyle Pitts is going to be a fantasy monster, it seems like, or at least for daily fantasy, a very viable tight end. And if you're getting 8 targets at tight end and you were 4,400 and as trafficked as he was, you should probably move up in price. And he did to 5,200, which leads me to not really understand how Tyler HIGBEE, who played basically all of the snaps for the Rams and is the only option at tight end, caught 5 of 6 targets for 68 yards in an extremely potent offense, is still only 4,100. Absolutely love him. And you also have Noah Fant at 4,200, who got 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 62 yards. We know about his big playability because of his ridiculous fantasy freakish athlete that he is. And now minus Jerry Jeudy in this offense should see at least a buoyed, if not elevated, target percentage with all the short passes that were scheduled to go towards Jerry Jeudy. So Noah Fant could realistically see 20% of the targets, and he squares off against the Jacksonville Jaguars here in week 2. 4,200 is absolutely too cheap. I'm going to use him as a one-off, leaving us 2,600 for whatever defense you want to play. You guys know I really don't care. Like, pick whatever one you want. I don't care, guys. Jimmy G, there. Go against Jimmy G with the Eagles. Sure. I don't care. We will pick out a defense as the week goes on that has a massive defensive line versus offensive line advantage to give us as much rushing ability as we can to produce turnovers and sacks. Cardinals at 2,100 were your best defense last week, and not many of us had him. So there is a way to find cheap defenses, and it is the way to approach attacking tournaments. So here's our double stack deck: Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Wilson, bringing it back with Austin Ekeler. Secondary stack: Metcalf to Brown in another high totaled game. Leonard Fournette at home, favored pass game work and goal line. Noah Fant, way too many targets for 4,200. Absolutely love this lineup, and I hope that you guys have yourselves a great week. Let me know in the comments your favorite quarterback double stack for week 2, and I'll see you guys later. Bye. He's a legend.